Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight on our news.
Centerville residents say they stand with their MP for his bold comments in the House of Assembly.
Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Christina Dragovich. Topping news tonight, the Bahamas Gaming Operators Association today shooting down claims by the Ministry of Finance that Bahamians spend $3.4 billion in aggregate on gambling. This as web shops prepare to battle the Minister administration over a new sliding scale tax that could swipe as much as half of some gaming houses' revenue. Jared Higgs reports.
The government knows very well the financial audited statements of each of the licensees in the sector. So I'm a bit concerned that such a number would be put out in the public space without any form of empirical data or analysis to support it.
CEO of the Bahamas Gaming Operators Association, Gershon Major, says he isn't aware of any data that supports the Ministry of Finance claim that Bahamians spend in excess of $3 billion on gambling. This recently released poster by the Ministry of Finance claims that Bahamians spend $3.4 billion in aggregate gambling. The source of that figure is the Gaming Board 2017. Well, Major says that figure is unclear.
Unfortunately, it's very difficult to comment on a number that we have no understanding of how it was derived. What we would appreciate is getting a better understanding of the empirical data or the analysis that was conducted to determine that number. And in fact, if that number is supported by any data, we're open to determining, where did that come from? Because that's not the data we have.
According to Major, the industry boasts a net income of $72 million annually. This $3.4 billion claim by the Ministry of Finance follows a gloomy prediction by gaming operators that a proposed tax hike would result in the closure of 192 gaming houses and the loss of 72% of gaming jobs. According to the BGOA, these figures were provided by an independent expert who was engaged to analyze the proposed sliding scale tax, which could see government take in anywhere between 20% to 50% of gaming house revenues.
We are required to look after approximately 3,000 Bahamians and their families who depend on this industry. So we don't have the luxury for inferences or conjecture or uninformed views based on numbers that come from places we cannot speak to. And so for us, it's about meaningful consultation. It's about an open dialogue. And let's get a international gaming expert.
As a matter of fact, Major says the BGOA will soon be releasing its own study.
We're also coming out with the economic impact study on the Bahamas relative to gaming, which we will release very shortly. And so the private sector, we don't have the luxury of subjectivity. We don't have the luxury of inferences. We have to be fact-based decisions.
Gaming house operators, in a letter to Deputy Prime Minister Peter Turnquest, penned by their attorney Alfred Sayers QC, issued a one-week deadline for government to meet with them or face legal action. That deadline expires on Friday. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
Well, Pine Ridge MP Frederick McAlpine ripping into his own government yet again, this time over the proposed increase in value-added tax to 12%. During his contribution to the budget debate, the FNM MP said the VAT hike goes completely against the transparency and compassion the party campaigned on, asserting that he is not grandstanding, he's standing up for the people. Kyle Joaquin tells us more.
This proposed action is devoid of transparency and compassion, and highly disrespected to the Bahamian people in general, as there was no evidence of consultation or notice. Minister of Finance is leaving me.
Not one to mince his words, Pine Ridge MP Frederick McAlpine let his own party have it over its plans to raise the VAT rate from 7.5% to 12%. It's been reported that some government MPs had no clue about the tax hikes and found out when the rest of the country did. He said even those in the private sector whom he said should have been consulted were left out.
Pine Ridge cannot support a 12% VAT increase at this time on the backs of Pine Ridgians, Grand Bahamians, and Bahamians everywhere. And it does much more to hurt the poor, the middle class, and the common man at this time. We are now falling into two categories in this country, poor or rich, and we're stifling the middle class in the process.
McAlpine hit out at the Minnis administration recently over giving the perception that the party is only for the light, white, rich, and the famous. And now, amid public uproar over the government's VAT plans, McAlpine again voicing that concern.
The people's budget seems to have gotten us in the front door, but we the people are paying on the way out the back door. I know as government we are relentless in our effort. Nonetheless, with the people, we are falling down. They see us who once preached transparency converted to secrecy.
The MP did, however, commend the government for numerous initiatives like reducing expenditure and plans for Grand Bahama. But his criticism didn't end there.
I can't kill the government for trying, but without any economic stimulus and present economic growth, this leads to shock and awe. And perhaps this is why we're feeling this stench and pushback from the public. All I can say to our government and Minister of Finance, it better work. If not, dog eat our lunch sooner rather than later.
Well, one FNM MP is prepared to suffer the political consequences of a tax hike. St. Barnabas MP Shannon Don Cartwright said if he has to suffer a political loss because of the love for his country, then so be it.
Maybe there will be a political price for the hard choices that has to be made at the end of this budget. Maybe I will have to pay that political price. But I tell you this, Mr. Speaker, I would rather pay that price than the heavy price that the Bahamian people will have to pay should I not make that choice.
For our news, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
And the Minnis administration also facing heavy criticism from another one of its own over the VAT hike and its failure to consult the business community. Centerville MP Reese Chipman says the people's budget will cause hardship to the people, adding his constituents are against VAT at 12%, and so is he. Jillian Gray reports.
Claiming to be standing not only for the people of Centerville but the entire Bahamas, MP Reese Chipman said he is against the move to increase VAT to 12%.
Centerville would like to make it clear to my constituents that their Member of Parliament had no input in this particular budget, any analysis or participation. And it's only now I'm offering my comments, concerns, references, and statements. I believe since it was presented to me on the floor of the House of Assembly, then this is where the dialogue is to take place.
The Centerville MP made it clear that his constituents are against the decision to raise the rate of value-added tax, noting it will result in a tougher business model, additional bureaucracy, and more hardship on all Bahamians. It has been reported that some FNM MPs were not aware the government intended to raise the rate of value-added tax until the finance minister dropped that bombshell in Parliament.
Mr. Speaker, I am concerned about the direction of our country. Many times, over the many years, I have seen politics marginalize the best and the brightest of our Bahamian people.
The Centerville MP is the first FNM MP to openly slam the government's VAT hike. He said while he is progressive and supports the government's overall commitment to fiscal responsibility, the move may not be good for Bahamians.
If the money is not trickling down, and it is staying with the very few, it may be good in and for the Bahamas, but not good for Bahamians.
Now, Centerville residents applauded their MP, who they say stood up for the Bahamian people.
I am proud because he's the only person who actually stood up for people. He ain't stood up just for our community, you know. He stood up for everyone in Nassau, everyone in the Bahamas.
I ain't gonna agree for no taxation on us, and like I said, no salary rise.
You think he was right for standing up?
Yes, because he's looking out for the people, and that's his job.
It's been trying hard to help the people, the poor people in the ghetto. Even people who ain't in the ghetto, people who live in these big-time houses, they crying out too. Because if you look at even with the light bill, if they carry it up, we'll be back in the old days. We'll be started using kerosene lamps.
The residents of Centerville say the increase in value-added tax should at least come with an increase in the minimum wage.
A lot of the little businesses can phase out, right? Because they're struggling now. So it just make it harder for the actual people. Our community can suffer more.
When you wanted us to vote for you, you came around personally, knocking on everyone's door saying, hey, you should vote for me because I can do this and I can do that and I can help the sun shine brighter and all those other good stuff they were selling to us because they wanted to buy it, and we buy it because we not know other sense.
Reporting for our news, I'm Jillian Gray.
And Progressive Liberal Party Deputy Leader Chester Cooper warning that the country could take a nosedive with the government's new budget and its proposed plan to increase the value-added tax rate to 12%. Cooper quipped that while the cost of living could skyrocket due to higher fees and taxes, perhaps new helicopters and planes will now be seen on the roofs of many Bahamian homes thanks to the government's decision to remove customs duties on those items. He added that this budget will also only compound the troubles of the Bahamas' already struggling economy.
Are they just looking at the books and wanting to see a clean, balanced budget without identifying and fostering opportunities for growth? The timing is incredibly bad strategy, Mr. Speaker. With the increasing oil prices and this spike in taxes, this is a perfect storm to send the economy into a nosedive.
Though it has been branded the people's budget, Cooper says the Bahamian people will not forget this move by the government. The Exumas and Ragged Island MP says the Minnis administration now suffers from a credibility deficit as it has done a complete about-face on a number of issues the FNM spoke out against while in opposition. The PLP deputy leader also hit out at government borrowing, calling for an investigation by the Auditor General as well as the Public Accounts Committee into refinance loans over the past year.
The previous loans, Mr. Speaker, were taken out a long time ago. I suspect now circumstances are a lot worse. The PAC and the Auditor General must look at these things. We want a full and complete list. There's a credibility deficit with this government, Mr. Speaker.
Meanwhile, the Bahamas Chamber of Commerce is predicting there will be chaos in the country on July 1st when the new value-added tax rate takes effect. CEO Edison Sumner says it's virtually impossible for businesses across the country to meet that deadline. Jasmine Brown joins us with the details. Jasmine?
That's right, Christina. Officials here at the Chamber insist if the government pushes ahead with that July 1st date, the results will be chaotic.
To say that if the government doesn't extend the timeline, what's going to happen, I think there may be a bit of an organized chaos, at least for a short while.
And according to the Chamber chief, the reason is simple.
It's almost a virtual impossibility to get all of this done in a matter of it's almost just days, really. Because notwithstanding that these companies still have to conduct the usual course of business every day. They cannot neglect the stuff that's going on in the businesses now. And now they've got to pull resources, perhaps go and hire more people to bring in to get certain things done. They've got to make adjustments to their point of sale systems. They've got to make adjustments to the SKUs in their stores. They've got to make adjustments to their accounting system to account for the increase in the rate.
The Chamber of Commerce has not been silent in its opposition to the VAT rate hike. The group is adamant that the VAT increase to 12% will hurt the country's economy. The BCCEC said it was also perturbed by the government's lack of consultation on the budget. Today, Sumner says this was the first time in recent memory that the chamber was not included in helping formulate the budget. He adds that since it appears the government is forging full steam ahead with the VAT hike, the chamber now wants the government to extend its July 1st compliance deadline for businesses.
Merchants in the country and retailers need more time than 30 days to reprice product in their stores, whether it's a large furniture store or whether it's a mom and pop shop or one of the larger retail outlets. These merchants need time to get their shops in order, so to speak. And I don't think 30 days is going to be adequate time. And in fact, they've expressed to us that 30 days is really inadequate time, and we've expressed that to the government.
Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance Peter Turnquest has gone on record to say the government will look at the Chamber's concerns, insisting the Minnis administration is open to sitting down with those who have a case to make about VAT. Meanwhile, Sumner says there is no bad blood between the Chamber and the government, adding that last week's meeting was not a waste of their time.
The door still left at least cracked open a bit to allow for some opportunity. And whatever space we have, we will take advantage of that space. So we're going to get the right people before the government to have this conversation. And hopefully, between now and when the debate ends by the end of next week, we would have had a chance to make some further input.
Now, Sumner says even if the government does not push back the date and the chamber doesn't get what it wants, they will continue to have a good relationship with the Minnis administration. Reporting from the Chamber of Commerce headquarters on Collins Avenue, I'm Jasmine Brown. Back to you, Christina.
Thanks, Jasmine. In other news, a young man was shot in the head last night as he reportedly tried to flee from an attempted robber on Bacardi and Carmichael Roads. Head of the Central Detective Unit, Chief Superintendent Solomon Cash, says police received reports of a shooting incident around 9:30 last night. When officers arrived on the scene, they met a large crowd gathered around a man whose body was found lying in the back of a wholesale liquor store.
Shortly around 9:30, the victim pulled up at this location where he was approached by a lone gunman who attempted to rob him. As a result, he was shot and he ran off where he collapsed. EMS was called to the scene to examine the body and pronounced him dead on the scene.
Cash says the victim appears to be in his late 20s or early 30s. The red and blue glare of police vehicles lit up the busy street as officers combed the scene for clues. Investigators also examined a white Nissan Cube believed to belong to the victim as his relatives screamed from behind crime scene tape. 41 people have been killed in the Bahamas this year. The CDU chief was asked about police presence on the streets of New Providence and the increase in armed robberies.
When we have incidences that are concentrated in any one particular area, then our manpower resources would shift and we would concentrate in dealing with those areas that are high in crime. But again, I'm appealing to members of the public who may be moving about at night or in the day during the busy working hours to be, cognizant of their surrounding. And if they see any persons walking around of a suspicious nature, to contact the police at 911 919.
Still to come on our news, why business owners aren't impressed by the VAT exemption increase on power bills. That and more when our news returns.